Welcome to Week in Horror.
You gotta be fucking kidding.
The only podcast that will feed your horror need.
The need to feed.
With JL.
Yeah, I'm a fucking masochist. I'll watch that shit.
Eugene.
Somebody has to be the sex symbol, I'm sorry.
Alex.
Shit, I just demonetize this forever.
And Johnny O.
How do you like that shit? Got halfway through the monologue before unmuting myself. Golly, it's one of them fucking days.
With industry guests.
Hi, this is Richard Oakes, Director of Host.
Hey, this is Adam Leader, Director of Host.
This is Matthew Mark Hunter.
I'm Don Ellie.
And you're listening to Week in Horror.
And you're listening to Week in Horror.
And this is Week in Horror.
And you're listening to Week in Horror.
Welcome to prime time, bitch!
News, trivia, and more.
One by one, we will take you.
Join our live show Wednesdays at 7 Central, youtube.com/weekinhorror, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Week in Horror. Stay scared. I was muted. Welcome, horror fans. It is 7 p.m. Central Time. That means it's time for another episode of the Week in Horror podcast, the only podcast that will not rest till I have me gold. I'm so retarded. And if you're listening to us on your favorite podcast host, you can join us here for our live show on YouTube, so you too can laugh and scream with us, flex your horror knowledge in the live chat, maybe even win some trivia prizes. This week, we're covering select films released in horror history, March 13th through March 19th. Thank you all so much for joining us. I am JL, and with me tonight are Aaron and Johnny O. Should be catching up here in just a moment.
Hey, how's it going?
Doing good. Yes, I apologize to the live chat. I was muted there for a moment. So, so many things, but it's actually okay. Johnny had a family emergency, so he's rushing to catch up, so he should be here shortly. But we have a bunch of stuff we actually have to talk about, and something cool we're going to do on screen here in just a moment. So, but first and foremost, we want to give a huge. He should be here shortly. Oh,
that's me. Trying to bring up the chat so I could talk to him, and my computer got a mind of its own.
So, first and foremost, we want to extend a giant Week in Horror welcome to the newest member to the Week in Horror Patreon family. Mitvelkez has joined the Week in Horror Patreon group. So thank you so much for the support, Mitvelkez. I'm so glad you're helping us out there. It's awesome. Your name now is there in the banner. You'll see it below scrolling along. Those are all of our amazing patrons who help us to make this show possible. So we do appreciate it. We're looking forward to seeing you at the After Dark special, which is going to be a lot of fun. And so thank you so much again for that huge amount of support. All right. Okay, so check this out. This is something new that I want to do. This is for the live stream so that people who are watching can see this. This is something cool that I found. So the three things that we're going to be announcing this way. Actually, you know what? Before we do that, I've got him in the backstage. Let's bring him up. Alex.
What's up, everybody?
Hey. So Alex is joining us real quick tonight so that we can do the coin toss.
Da flip.
So Alex has been kicking ass and taking names in the bloodbath debates as of late. So he has schooled all of us here on the crew. He's beaten all of us except for Aaron. And
he had his ass burnt by the new guy.
And this is going to be Aaron. This is going to be Aaron's first bloodbath debate, taking on Alex, the reigning champion, who schooled me, Eugene, and Johnny. And so now he's going to be taking the last dude. If he skunks us all, if he like runs the table on all four of us, I'm going to be so depressed.
We're just all secretly going to like coordinate behind the scenes.
You've got to bring it, Aaron. Although all of us input into it.
Yeah, just one super script.
So we'll see if Alex can maintain his streak and run the entire table of everyone here at Week in Horror. And so the newest bloodbath, and I put a poll up in the community tab on YouTube, is so you can vote on who it's going to be. The vote is between, or who it's going to be is Pinhead from the Hellraiser series versus Pazuzu from the Exorcist series. Both nasty, nasty demons. So, and really stupid powerful. So here we go. We're going to do the Bloodbath debate, official coin toss. Alex, as the reigning champion, you get to call it in the air. You ready? So remember.
Let's do it.
The Texas is heads. The words are tails. So flipping it now. I will flip it on screen so everybody can see it. So no, I'm not trying to like cheat you or anything like I did to Johnny O during that one trivia game. All right, so call it in the air, Alex.
Tails.
And tails don't fail.
Oh, hell yeah.
So Alex will get to choose who he wants to represent in the upcoming Bloodbath debate. Do you want Pazuzu or do you want Pinhead?
You know, this was so difficult because it's like two just super badasses. But because of the extent of the story, I'm going to have to go with Pinhead on this one.
Alex is taking Pinhead.
And I kind of had a feeling Aaron's going to have a lot more backstory on Pazuzu than I do. Probably a lot more knowledge as to the lore of the Exorcist.
Well, and Pazuzu's an actual demon that I believe Sumerians used to use to summon to destroy other demons too.
Okay, so Aaron's diving into it is the reason why I chose these two, because I've been looking for someone to go up against Pinhead for a while. So I started going through like the list of demons, like horror movie demons, and came across Pazuzu. And you always think Pazuzu is like, like what it possesses people, possesses priests and little girls stuff. It's like, actually, no, you dive into the mythology behind this thing and what they touch on in the movies. Pazuzu is stupid powerful. So I'm looking forward to what Aaron brings to this debate. And of course, Alex, you as well. I think this is going to be a solid one. To see if Alex can pull out another win and maintain his streak, or if Aaron is going to upset the champion and take the title. So I'm looking forward to it.
This could be a thing for sure. I'm looking forward to it though. And not to like put anybody else down, but I feel like Aaron's probably got some backlog of hidden knowledge that we don't even know about yet. So I'm excited to see that.
Yeah, my general knowledge is absolutely useless in the real world, but when it comes to stuff like this, I'm a little bit dangerous.
That's the whole point. That's the whole point of this podcast. The whole point of it is we have these encyclopedic, vast resources of knowledge in our heads, and we needed an outlet for them. And so now I'm more socially acceptable when I go out into the world. All right. Well, thank you so much for popping in, Alex, for taking care of the Bloodbath debate coin toss, and get those arguments ready. And dude, I'll catch you. You're probably going to be on the next episode, right?
Probably, yeah. So
all
probably
right.
See you in a couple days here.
All right, Chief. Have a good one.
Take it easy.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm excited. This is going to be that's going to be a good debate. I'm seriously looking forward to it. Okay. Fun. Oh yeah. All right, so we have a couple of other things that we want to talk about before Johnny gets here, and maybe he'll be able to pop in here shortly. But let's jump this out. Check this out. I just set this up. We can add stuff. So the very first thing we want to talk about is the trivia prize for tonight is a special one. We're giving away a fumbling microphone. We are giving away an Evil Dead Groovy box set. Bam. So we are giving away an Evil Dead Groovy collection box set. It contains Evil Dead, Evil Dead 2, and Ash versus Evil Dead, the complete collection. So I think it doesn't have Army of Darkness. So, but we are giving away an Evil Dead Groovy collection box set for the winner of tonight's trivia question. Be prepared, because the trivia question is, its difficulty is on par with how awesome this box set is. So there you go. That is the trivia prize tonight. So good luck to everybody there. Get those fingers flexing. It's going to be good. I have no doubt I'm going to ask the trivia question. Someone's going to know it immediately. I have no doubt about that whatsoever. So, but good luck to everybody on that one. All right. Next up, let's say hi to everybody in the chat and try to give Johnny a little more time, because I'd love to get his opinions on the things that we're going to talk about. So first and foremost, in the chat, we've got Travis Brown is in the house. Good to see you, Travis Brown. Thank you so much for being here. Wrote it no last name, was the first to hit the like button. I do appreciate it. Be sure you smash that like button. We do appreciate it. Wrote it no last name is in the house. Gabba Gabba to you. CPM is in the house. Wave. Thank you so much. Appreciate you being here. Cindy Johnson, good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. Tony Regime is in the house. Thank you so much, Tony. Good to see you. Always a pleasure. Sarcasm's house, one of our amazing patrons. Thank you so much, Sarcasm. You rock. Thank you for being here. Sir Little Wolf's in the house. Aru to you. Thank you so much. And Raven Darkstar as well. Hello to you. Surf is in the house. Another one of our amazing patrons. Thank you so much, Surf. Appreciate you being here. Jord, I see you over there. I see you hanging out over there with your caps lock on. Thank you so much, dude, for being here. Appreciate it. Chris Durham is in the house. Chris Durham's music channel says, my trivia question guess is just outside the window. It's trying to get in. It's breaking the window. We do appreciate it, Chris Durham. You rock, man. Brendan Riley's in the house. Says, evening all. Evening to you. Thank you so much for being here. Charlie Welch says, do it. Yes, Charlie Welch. We will do it. Charlie Welch, the only man on the internet you never make a bet with. Thank you so much, Charlie Welch, for being here. We do appreciate it. H. Jasper E., another one of our amazing patrons. Thank you, H. Jasper, for popping in. We do appreciate the support. Same goes for you, Donnie Does That. Says, hey, everybody. Hey, Donnie Does That. Thank you so much for being here. We do appreciate it. Thank you so much. And Sarah Velez says, hello, horror peeps. Good to see you, Sarah Velez. Fantastic. Oh, man, I've got a bunch of people. Ivy Gentry's in the house. Says, okay, I'm going to try to be here. My mom. Oh, no. Her mom had a stroke 2 weeks ago.
Oh.
That is a shame, Ivy.
She's okay.
If you do need to go, we totally understand it, but we appreciate you popping in to say hi. All the best, all the absolute best from all of us here at Week in Horror to your mom. I hope she makes through that all right. So all the best. All right. And I see, see Raven Archer says, hey, JL. Hey, Aaron. Hey, Raven. Good to see you.
Hello.
And I think Johnny O, Johnny O is, if Johnny O hosts, Sarcasm says, if Johnny O is 15 minutes late, he is early. This is very true. Very, very true. Jinju's in the house. Good to see you, Jinju. Thank you so much for popping in. And the George says, my guest for tonight's trivia is Ash Williams' evil clone. Maybe. I can't confirm or deny that.
Which one? You need to specify Army of Darkness or Evil Dead 2.
I'm good, Ash. You're bad, Ash. I love that sequence. It's hilarious. Oh, good to see everybody. Man, it's fantastic. NA's in the house. Another one of our amazing patrons. So it says, so it's not kicking names and taking ass? Well, you have to ask Aaron. Oh, you have to ask Alex. I think for Alex, it is kicking names and taking ass. But we appreciate you being here, NA. Thank you so much. Another one of our amazing patrons who helps us make this show. Sarcasm's got to vote in for Pinhead. Oh, Aaron, you think
I'm not talking to Sarcasm anymore. Going to.
Well, Sarcasm. Oh, well, there you go. Sarcasm says, no, Pinhead for the win, but we never know. Pazuzu's going to bring the fight. I have no doubt about it. All right, and I see Angel Rivera's in the house. Good to see you. Angel Rivera says, what up? Week in Horror. Aaron Reese, Sir Little Wolf, and everybody else. Thank you so much, Angel Rivera. Good to see you. And I see, did I see somebody new in there? I think that was it. I think I caught everybody. Charlie Welch is good. Oh, Jared Reese is in the house. Says good versus evil. It is always the way. That is the nature of the game. Good to see you, Jared Reese. Appreciate you being here. And, of course, I think that's it. Oh, yes, I caught everybody. Ha. If I missed anybody, I do apologize. I love saying hi to everybody in the chat. We do appreciate all of you, all of our patrons for popping in and saying hello and supporting the show. So a couple of things that made kind of horror news, and I definitely want to get your opinion on them. This next one up is the Netflix Bioshock movie. Now, this is horror and gaming, survival horror and gaming.
Yeah.
So we don't talk a lot about gaming over here, but we do have a gaming channel, which is Week in Horror Digital Darkness, which is hosted by Alien X Gaming, another one of our amazing patrons who picked up the reins and is running Digital Darkness like a friggin' boss and does all kinds of cool stuff. The Phasmophobia, Dead by Daylight, there's all kinds of horror games that he runs over there. And occasionally we pop in to have fun with him.
Yeah, this is really interactive with the chat too. Like I popped in a few times and he'll keep conversation going while he's busy slaying ghosts.
Nice. Well, this is interesting. So, so I can straight up say Bioshock. Okay, I'm a huge gamer myself. And I love survival horror, Resident Evil, Silent Hill, Fatal Frame, so on and so forth.
Love Silent Hill.
Bioshock got me because the writing on it was absolutely stellar. The writing blew me away. It was one of the only games I've ever been playing, and then I had to pause it when that big twist comes towards the end, before the final boss fight.
Yep.
It was a huge, big twist, and I was like, holy, and then the whole thing just like materialized, coalesces in your head, and you're like, whoa, and it blew me away. But Bioshock is an immersive survival horror experience, first person, designed for video games. How do you think that's going to translate to Netflix?
It takes a miracle to put video games on film correctly, because you can't just rehash what's there. The diehard fans will ask for it. They will beg to see a visual, almost shot for shot of what the game was. But then it's disappointing. They've done it. They know what's around every corner. They don't get the experience. But if you change it too much to either, kind of put them off center, or if you try to cater to outside audiences, you just shoot it to hell.
Right. Going on what you just said right there, the same thing really applied to, and I think the same thing applied to Resident Evil, because there were a lot of themes in the first Resident Evil film when it came out that just kind of blew me. I was like, oh, this is so cool. It's not a direct translation of the game, but we're seeing the thematic elements, the train, the mansion, camera angles, the way they use the camera were very similar to the way they set that up. And I really enjoyed that. I like that. But we had 7 Resident Evil films starring the lovely and amazing Milla Jovovich. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, we get Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. And I didn't realize how much I liked that kind of adaptation from the game until I'd already been through 7 years and over a decade of Resident Evil that didn't do that. And then all of a sudden we got Welcome to Raccoon City. And I was like, holy crap, this is a movie made for gamers. Made for the gamers who remember the first two games that came out so long ago on the PlayStation. And this one was like, and it was just kind of like a love letter it was a love letter to the gamers, which is why it didn't do well. It was critically panned, and only the gamers who really love Resident Evil really picked up on the film.
Yeah, it takes to knock it out of the park. You have to get somebody, a filmmaker who is talented, obviously, but loves the work. And honestly, with the Resident Evil series, he said he loved the game and everything, but he made the mistake of trying to take and cover too much in the first movie because he was grabbing from multiple games. Well, as soon as he did that, he screwed up the timeline, and he started having to deviate more and more and experiment. And honestly, to me, it became silly.
Yeah, it really did. It was the second one. It was Apocalypse when they decided to bring in Nemesis. That's when I think the shark got jumped and they tried to go too big, too fast.
It was the clones that killed it for me.
Oh, when
they opened up, yeah, yeah, and it's just like,
come on! If you're married to Milla,
wait, is this a new Bowles film? Yeah.
if you're married to Milla Jovovich, you want lots of her on the screen. Just imagine all those Milla Jovoviches. So I agree. So I don't know. So I'm 50-50 on this one, although actually I would say I'm 60-40. And the reason I'm 60-40 on this is because Netflix is partnering with, they didn't just license it, they're partnering with 2K Games in order to bring this adaptation to life, and it's being directed by Gore Verbinski.
Yeah,
behind The Ring and behind Pirates of the Caribbean. So
yeah, The Ring that opened up for not just me, a lot of people, whole new element of horror because he brought in some of the Japanese concepts. So I'm hoping he'll do the same thing. Because when he brought The Ring over, it made some people mad when he translated Ring to The Ring, but he preserved the important parts while making it a little new. He knew that he would have to put his own touches on it to make it stand out and make it good, and he did a good job of it. So he might do well with this. And like you said, Netflix, when they're a little less picky when somebody's already done something and brought it to them as to whether they'll accept it or not. But when they step in ahead of time on something, they generally demand quality. So that gives me some hope that you'll at least get a 6 or 7 out of 10 movie from it.
Definitely. So I'm definitely curious as to how this one's going to turn out. We're going to be following along as we get more information about the Bioshock Netflix movie. So I almost said Bioflix, but it's going to be interesting, especially when they determine how they're going to shoot it or who they're going to cast.
There's going to be a lot of CGI backgrounds, and hopefully they handle that well. And it looks right.
See, recreating Rapture, You know, the big daddies are one thing, the little sisters are one thing. You know, the various characters that pop in around that you interact with are interesting. The creepy people with the bunny masks and shit. But how they're going to make Rapture makes me very, very interested. This is my prediction. My prediction is that this will be a film that follows there will be a film that follows the fall of Rapture, and it will introduce the big daddies and the little sisters as an element. So it'll either begin right before or just as Rapture is falling, before the events of the first game. That's my prediction. It will essentially be a prequel to go through the events leading up to that. So that's my
show it when it was still not quite pristine, but still a functional society.
Gotcha.
That'd be pretty cool.
So I'm really curious. I'm curious as to what's going to happen with that one. I see Dave Cernick is in the house. Says, hey, JL and Aaron Reese, here's a thumbs up. Thank you so much, Dave. I do appreciate it. And Sir Little Wolf, I loved Doom 2. I did. I loved it because it was stupid fun. And The Rock saying, I need soldiers. You know, I love that shit. It was so ham and it was so brilliant. It was perfect for Doom. You're translating Doom. It's the first person who's like,
it's not exactly a deep plot sort of game.
So I'm really, really curious as to what's going to happen with this one. And Georgia, I agree. I will never say no to more Mila Jovovich. Absolutely not. All right. And of course, yes, so Little Wolf's right. Then again, I have a big crush on Ally Larder. I do have a big crush on Ally Larder as well. And I will say that
take the fifth. My wife's in the audience.
And that was
completely incriminating.
That is one of the gripes. That's one of the gripes that I had about the new Resident Evil film. It was 50-50 perfectly cast. Half the cast was absolutely perfect. Half the cast, I just like, they're talented actors. I don't begrudge them that. They're very good. And they deliver their lines and they make it believable and it works. I just wouldn't have cast them like that. So this is just me. I would have made different choices, but whatever that, however it goes. But next up, before we jump to before we get deeper into it, and hopefully Johnny will be here shortly, the new Fede Alvarez Alien film, produced by Ridley Scott, directed by Fede Alvarez, who from Evil Dead, from the Evil Dead kind of soft reboot, and of course, Don't Breathe and Don't Breathe 2. This has been greenlit, so Fede Alvarez will be directing the next Alien film being produced by Ridley Scott.
I'm hoping they'll bring it more back into the horror and away from the action. Honestly, I think they've gone too far in that direction with the entire series.
Well, I'm curious. The big question, and I can see that, and I would agree. A little bit more horror and a little less action focused. I get that. Yep. My big thing is this going to be a outside of Ridley's Jesus myth franchise that trilogy that he was going to make, Prometheus, Covenant, so on and so forth. Is it going to be falling in line with that, or is this an entirely new film? Are we picking up where they left off, where he's perfected the alien and he's going on to this next planet or whatever? Are we picking up from there, or is it something totally new?
Yeah, are we going to go multiverse? Well, even if they don't pick it up, do they go multiverse where they start retconning movies out, or do they kind of squeeze it in the timeline?
Right.
There's so many ways they could do it right and so many ways they could do it wrong.
This one, because I have such great confidence in Fede Alvarez's ability to do this, to work with other people's IP and to work with his own IP, to work with the Evil Dead IP and to work with his own stuff with Don't Breathe. I am really, really, and what's hilarious, the one thing that I want to stress about Alvarez is the reason he did Don't Breathe was because of critical reception to Evil Dead. I loved his Evil Dead. I absolutely adored it. I haven't met a horror fan that didn't love it. My jaw was on the floor in the first 5 minutes. That opening sequence got me. And I was like, he had me from there. But there were a lot of critics that complained, oh, it's so loud and it's so violent and extreme and blah, blah, blah. And, and they give all this. So he deliberately made a movie where everyone has to be quiet. He deliberately made it, but he took all of the negative critical reception that he got from all the critics about Evil Dead and did Don't Breathe as a response to that. So that's why Don't Breathe has none of what's going on in Evil Dead. It's the complete opposite, and it was still an amazing film. And so he did Don't Breathe 2, and of course Evil Dead. So I'm really, really curious what he's going to bring to this one. How much of it is his vision, how much is Ridley's vision, and there's no idea, there's no information as to where this is going to go, or if Sigourney Weaver will play even a bit role in it, or if they may de-age her for something. I'm not 100% sure. So who knows? I see that there's a lot of people out there, a lot of people in the live chat saying that they should have stopped after Alien 2. I see Brendan Riley says they should have stopped after Alien 2. And I thought somebody else saying Prometheus and Covenant kind of sucked for Brendan Riley. And I think Travis Brown says Aliens from 1986 was the last great Alien movie. So, And I see Angie's in the house. Good to see you, Angie. Thank you so much for being here. Angie, you need to get me your shipping details because you were given somebody's trivia win last month, and I haven't gotten those details yet. So I need to get you your trivia prize. Let me double check and see what it is. Angie, you were gifted a limited edition number 4 t-shirt. The Shit Gets Real shirt featuring Eugene's catchphrase. I need to know your shipping details. I need to know your size, and I need to know what color you want it in. So I think that the colors are available on the Teespring. You can check it out. I think it's black, blue, green, and white, and red. I think there's multiple colors you could choose from. But decide what color you like, and then what your size is, and then get us your shipping details via the Discord or via weekinhorror@gmail.com, and I will get your limited edition number 4 shipped to you. I'm so glad you popped in. Thank you. All right. So, yeah, big news that popped out this week regarding horror films. So, who knows what's going to happen.
Maybe he'll get restored to its former glory. Ridley swings a pretty big bat.
He does.
Even if there are some expectations set by the company where they're trying to breathe down their neck and they could ruin it, hopefully he's just going to knock them back on and say, no, this is where we're going.
Right. All right. So the last thing before we dive into tonight's film selection, I see Johnny has still not joined us, which is a shame. His family emergency may be maybe hanging him up pretty bad. Is this week. So we record the show the Wednesday before it drops. So we're covering next week. So this is the 13th through the 19th. And of course, on the 17th of March is, of course, my favorite day in March, which is St. Paddy's. I love going to the pub and hanging out. And of course, St. Paddy's falls in. So I just wanted to take a moment just to kind of like pay respects to the best St. Patrick's themed horror franchise, which is Leprechaun. And of course, the performances of Warwick Davis as Lubden, the evil leprechaun, through 6 films. 6 films, I think he did. Yeah, 4, and then the 2 Back to the Hoods. So yeah, I just wanted to be like that. What was your take on that franchise? Just Warwick Davis and what he did.
It's been forever since I've seen it. I think I abandoned it after number 2. It had Warwick Davis is good in anything he does. He was hilarious. The first 2 movies, scary enough, but then they really started trying to photocopy the culture around them and other movies and everything, and I think that's what killed it. Taking inspiration's cool. There's nothing original, but when you take and Jason's on a space station and suddenly you're firing a leprechaun into space, you might want to back off a little bit.
Everyone's eventually got to go to space. Pinhead's been there. Jason's been there. I think the Leprechaun has been there. I think the only ones who haven't been there are Michael. Michael hasn't been to space yet, and Freddy hasn't been to space. So eventually maybe. But even critters have been to space. So the kicker was, and I like that you brought it because it was part 1 and part 2. Really kind of went more on the horror, less of the comedy. And 3, I think, was unique because 3 was the moment when that director decided to essentially let Warwick Davis run with the role, make the role his own, do what he thought was funny, and have fun with it, and just be good with that. Because 3 is definitely where it took a turn when he was in Vegas. 3 is definitely where it takes a turn and it becomes way more comedy and more slapstick. Much like what happened with Child's Play films with Bride of Chucky, Seed of Chucky, so on and so
Same
forth.
thing with Freddy when they started letting Robert Englund ad lib some of his lines. A lot of his, the post kill lines, taglines of his are completely made up on his own. He said he had excess lists and everything, but he is the reason that series endured, because even when the plot completely sucked toward the end, he was still absolutely great.
I'll give it this: Dream Warriors was badass, but 4 and 5, Dream Master and Dream Child, yeah, it was kind of like Dream Warriors was
The first horror movie I can ever
I don't
remember
believe in
seeing.
fairy tales. I was like, fucking A. I love Dream Warriors. It was badass.
Yeah.
And plus, it brought Nancy back and Lawrence Fishburne in it. It was just, it was cool as shit. And they had my favorite "Welcome to Primetime, bitch," and I was like, it had that moment, just all kinds of great stuff.
And it started expanding the mythos too, which they killed a lot of the stuff, because part 2 was supposed to have Dream Warriors in it, where Freddy was killing them all over the country and everything, and they were, I can't remember who it was. It was traveling around finding them, but they end up adding it to that, and that's really when they started expanding the mythos. Instead of just Freddy being the one that had these powers in the dreams, and there was more, they started doing that. And then the next few, they started just abusing it like a redheaded stepchild. And it's like every time, just, oh, here's this loophole to defeat him. Oh, never mind, you didn't defeat him. Sorry.
Sir Little brings up, what does the map say? When he was doing the map, and the map kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger like that. It's like, what does the map say? It says we're fucked. That shit was hilarious. And yes, someone brought it up there. Yes, you are correct. Dracula, yes, critters are from space, but then they went back to space. And then, of course, Dracula has also gone to space as well.
Oh,
so I remember Dracula 3000. All right. So good stuff, and I really loved it. I loved it when it was kind of the same thing with Friday the 13th. The director of Part 3 did a really good. It was a really good decision to basically let Warwick Davis run with the role and have fun with it and bring his own energy to it. And I thought that was awesome. So good choice, because 4, 5, 6 also. Yeah, that's right. Angel Rivera, Pinhead also went to space. So. From there, it made the series enjoyable, and it pretty much gave it the longevity that Robert Englund had, because Robert Englund turned in one more performance, which was New Nightmare, and then that was pretty much it. He was done with the role. I think his last performance as Freddy was in an episode of the Goldbergs, which is a show I haven't watched yet, but I've heard a great thing. I've heard a lot of good stuff about it. Where
I've seen it, and I can't remember
the blonde mom, she has a nightmare, and he shows up in the nightmare. So it was the last time he's been on screen in the getup, in the Freddy getup. So and who knows, we may get another Friday the 13th someday. But unfortunately, Warwick Davis has retired from the role of Lubden, and of course, we got 2 more Leprechaun films after that, and they were just garbage. Yeah. So I think we could put that one.
At the base, he's a comedian. He's done other stuff, horror and action, but if you see just the pure comedic work he does, like, he is. He did a few that I'm not going to dare repeat, because they say some rather scandalous things about little people, and he's allowed to say that. But yeah, he's a hilarious guy. I mean, he's friend of Ricky Gervais. So.
And the George said, how nobody mentioned Jason X? That was the first thing we mentioned. We mentioned Jason X. Jason went to space. How could you not? I think it was Aaron who mentioned it first.
Yep. Yeah, the sleeping bag scene in that is one of the funniest moments in a horror movie. They wanted to do it originally in the first. I think it was not the first, but the second one, because it was the first one Jason was in. I think it was that one they were going to do, and they wouldn't let him do it. And I'm like, did you see? Like, he's splitting skulls, but you can't stuff a person in a sleeping bag. So they finally got a chance to do it, and they just went down on it, and it's perfectly timed.
I love that. It's argued as like the best kill ever was in 7, when he just it's just like and then whack, it's just done. I was like, Kane Hodder was the man when he pulled it off, and then getting a chance to do it again. And just like blap, blap, blap. It's just hilarious. I freaking love that one. Oh, yes, the holodeck sleeping bag bunnies wrote in OS name. That's absolutely what they were. And of course, the liquid nitrogen kill was pretty sick too. Yeah. All right. Oh, Raven Darkster says the only Jason she's seen was X. That's a lot of Jason. To Prime, yes. We did that. I actually did that in honor of, I think it was the anniversary or something like this, but whatever it was, I actually showed the entire, we streamed it live. We streamed the entire franchise on our Discord, like front to back. The whole thing. We streamed the whole collection on our Discord. It took like 17 hours. Just like boom, 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 boom. Just every single movie we had them just going back to back on a Discord one time in honor of that. I think it was the anniversary.
Been a while since I've been able to binge like that. You have kids and it gets difficult.
I was up the entire time. I was awake the entire time through it, the whole thing. Oh, Shinju's right. The graboids need to go to space. Tremors in space.
Oh, God.
Seven movies, and they haven't gotten to space yet. So eventually we will get space graboids. That will be sweet.
They're going to have to get into the space station or something. I don't see them being effective in the vacuum.
Okay, so I think, unfortunately, Johnny is still not with us tonight, but that's okay because he's not kicking it off. But we have some movies that we need to talk about.
Yeah.
We've got four excellent selections. This is so the selections for like last week and this week have been my apology to Aaron.
Yeah.
We bring him onto the crew, and he's kicking butt and taking names, and then like the first major run I give him is Witchcraft series. So I'm still apologizing.
It
still making up
hurts.
CPM says Moon Tremors. Fucking A.
It could work.
It could work. It could never...
Screamers versus Tremors. There you go.
Oh, that's gross. That would be gross. All right. So let's kick this off. Aaron, what do we have up first?
First one is if you don't know this, go away. It's Evil Dead 2, directed by Sam Raimi, written by Sam Raimi and Scott Spiegel, and starring the legendary Bruce Campbell, Sarah Berry, Dan Hicks, Cassie Wesley, and Richard, I'm assuming it's pronounced Domeyer. But essentially it is a modification on the first movie, but stages a sequel where he goes out to the cabin through an audio recording demons or something that all start doing all sorts of terrible things. Other people are pulled into it, and it is just comedic horror genius.
It is pure genius, absolute genius.
Yeah.
See, this was wild because initially there was another film that was so they were. Sam Raimi was approached to do a sequel to it, but opted instead originally to do a movie that was written by Joel and Ethan Coen called Crime Wave.
Yeah, they tried to shop out the sequel, and nobody would take it at first.
Right, yeah, nobody would touch it. It's kind of like, no, we're not. It's just like no one was interested. So Sam Raimi directed Crime Wave, and Crime Wave didn't do very good. And unfortunately, everyone was thinking. And this was what I think was one of the coolest stories behind this one in trying to develop the sequel. So they do Crime Wave and they're dealing with that. And all of a sudden they feel, because of the lackluster response, critical and commercial response to Crime Wave, they start feeling like their careers are lagging. It's like, we really need it because, Crime Wave had hit, they would have been hot. But unfortunately it did not. So they're kind of like, oh, crap, we need to do something. So what do we do? And then, of course, it took, they're apparently, the living situation at the time is they were all staying in this one particular pad. There were other actors who were staying there. Things were chaotic, and they were trying to get the script done. They finally get the script written, and they start going around, and the script that Raimi had written didn't look like the movie that we got. Initially, elements of Army of Darkness were supposed to be in the sequel. I was going to say,
we got it. We just didn't get it in this movie.
Right, we didn't get it in this movie. We eventually would get it, but not in this film. And then the big thing about it was, everybody was kind of like, it was Dino De Laurentiis contacted Sam Raimi and said, hey, would you like to do an adaptation? Would you like to direct an adaptation of Thinner, of Stephen King's Thinner? And he was like, and he passed on that because he was like, no, we're trying to get this one done, trying to get this movie going. He's like, okay. And Dino De Laurentiis kept in touch with Raimi, and it was Stephen King himself.
Yep.
Who contacted De Laurentiis and was like, dude, you gotta get him, you gotta let him do this movie. Because
he was such an advocate for the first one. Like, he does that. Right. People don't realize it, but when he likes a movie, he will push it. And I mean, now that he's on Twitter, more people know about it. But he knows what he loves, and he'll get it out there.
So King jumps in there, gives them the push to De Laurentiis. De Laurentiis like, it's okay, and they were shooting for $4 million, but they got $3.6 million, and they were off and running. And you can tell, obviously, from the first film, which was essentially a college student film, was the first Evil Dead, as compared to this one with a multi-million-dollar budget, and now they have the opportunity to really, really kick ass and form that. But it's interesting, because obviously big discussions as to what was going to be in the movie, what they wanted to do. They wanted to take it to the medieval thing and expand the mythology and everything. But producers were kind of like, 80s mentality, 80s sequel mentality, essentially. So that's why we got the changes that we got, so that we could have more blood, more guts, more goofiness, more craziness. Everything is bigger and louder and more extreme. I think it just kind of fell prey to that, because that's what was marketable, but ultimately works because Evil Dead, arguably I think Evil Dead 2 probably arguably one of the best in the franchise, to be honest.
Yeah, it's amazing, because it did not veer away from the things that made the first one great. The really unconvincing blood and guts and just spraying it everywhere, and they stuck with it, which it works because this is a slapstick horror movie. I mean, that is what makes it most comedic horrors go a little more intellectual. No,
I think it struck the good balance, because obviously Army of Darkness way more slapstick than this one was. The Three Stooges is a big inspiration for Raimi, and he puts a lot of stuff in it. You could see it. Obviously, Bruce Campbell is a genius when it comes to physical comedy, and his reactionary comedy. So, but obviously you look at the graveyard scene. Come on, that was straight out. That was straight out of the Stooges playbook. But 2, I think, struck the perfect balance of horror and comedic elements. In a sense, it's funny because we're laughing as Ash is going insane, dealing with the shit.
Well, he's laughing as he goes insane. I mean, that's the point. Everybody's in on it.
Everybody was laughing. Like that. The fucking, I'll never get over the deer head on the wall.
Oh God!
And all the furniture and shit. But that was the brilliance. It was not just about it, obviously with that amount of money on the line and the pressure on the filmmakers, because now all of a sudden you've got Evil Dead, you've got King's blessing going in. Dino Donut says, here's your money based on King's recommendation alone. Go and make this movie. Then you get through discussions, you finally finalize a script, and then at that point on, and because at the beginning, obviously all the other friends are not there, it's just him and Linda, and then you bring in.
It started out with all 5 present, and it changed and everything, and part of that was to save money. They reduced the amount of people there, but it went through 5 rewrites. At one, there were prisoners holding Ash hostage. So it went through a little bit of production hell at the very beginning.
I did hear about that. There was supposed to be, there was like a scene where it was convicts who were looking for like buried treasure.
Yeah.
And that's what,
treasure in the cabin.
That got scrapped. And then, of course, having to lose all the medieval stuff and pushing that to the 3rd film. So you're looking at all of this. I can't even imagine the pressure. It's not just the pressure on Raimi as a filmmaker or on Bob Tappert as a producer, but you're looking at Bruce Campbell. Okay, the only one to literally traverse it. Ash is the hero. He was the hero of the first one. Now he's the hero. Now he's here in the second one. But now it's big. It's big money. There's big money involved. There's, it's a high time. It's not just on the filmmakers. It's now on the production company. It's everything going behind it. For this particular one, they actually rebuilt the cabin in a gymnasium instead of shooting it in that shitty cabin out there in the woods that they found.
They dropped an exterior for the cabin. That's actually 3 hours from here. Where I'm at is where it was done. And I don't know how much is left, but I know for a time you could go there. And there was a guy, which it's annoying. He took a piece off the cabin and brought it with him as a memento and everything. And I'm like, well, okay, that's good. But then if everybody does that, there's no cabin left.
There's no cabin left. And I'm as an actor, and I'm trying to just imagine that, especially at his age, because he was working bits and pieces. If you blink and you miss him, he was in Dark Man, another Raimi production. Bruce Campbell was here and there. But this was the first, really, really big outing. I mean, yes, he was there, but that was really an ensemble piece that he wound up the hero of in the first film. This one is Ash-led. This is him. He gets possessed times, he chops off his hand, he gets the chainsaw arm for the first time, and he's got to deal with all the crowd. They bring in Henrietta. Henrietta turns into the big monster. There's all kinds of things. He gets sprayed with all kinds of shit. He's got to carry the movie. Millions of dollars on the line. It's all in my mind, and I know Raimi would probably disagree that it was all riding on him. I imagine Bruce Campbell believed it was all riding on him.
Yeah.
Yes, Ashley J. Williams. Yes, that it's all riding on, but it's all riding on Bruce to sell. Yes, he was. Yep, Maniac Cop 2, correct.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point, it's all riding on him as the lead actor to carry this movie and to carry Ash's arc from the beginning all the way to to the setup for Army of Darkness. That is daunting.
That's the thing for all of them, the entire crew, because they brought over a lot of people, even when they were able to afford more / better, and I should put that in quotation marks. So they did amazing stuff on the first one with very little.
Yeah.
But that more established names. And for a lot of, they still brought their own guys along for this movie, and that is a blood, sweat, and tears cast and crew. And now you've got more money, which means more blood, sweat, and tears.
Right.
So people always say work smarter, not harder, and I've always said do both. And I think that's probably kind of true they are. And I'm like, well, now you've got tons of money to kill yourself with.
That's one of the big things. And of course, as I have experienced, because I've worked with budgets as limited as $1,000 for a production, I've worked with larger budgets that can get up into the 5 and 6 figures. When you have more money, yes, you can do more things. You can do a more elaborate set that you can have fun with. You can do, like, unlike in the first film, where the cabin was just this piece of crap that was out there in the middle of the woods. And then, of course, they had to they basically spruced it up as best they could. They built a fake trap door that was lead to the basement. They shot the basement scenes, and I think Sam Raimi's house doing that. And so there's a lot of difficulty that comes with that. But when you have the money to do these things, then it's essentially adding more gears to the machine. And of course, with more gears comes the potential for more issues because there's more things to break down. And it becomes so. In essence, it works with filmmaking: more money, more problems, which you'll deal with. For example, and the biggest thing, and I never realized until I went back and rewatched it, the cabin that they built in the gymnasium to shoot, when they basically set the whole thing up, so they ostensibly had kind of like a soundstage to work.
You mean the TARDIS in the woods that's like 4 rooms deep inside of this tiny box?
And so you're running around that in the sequence when Ash leaves the bridge and he's running from the evil again, and the evil's running through the woods. Going there, and then he goes back and is chasing him through the cabin from room to room to room. If you notice, there are sequences there when they were like this where the gymnasium ceiling is visible because it was a roof, and so there are little details in there. But this is what happens when, and I'm not saying it detracts from the film. It's just little things that you notice, and it's simply because you run into this when you have so much money going on. Little things can slip by, because you don't see anything like that in the first movie because it's so tight, it's so clean. I mean, everybody is there, and you've got to stretch every single dollar. You can't afford to do multiple reshoots, and so you've got to get it done. And so you actually see fewer things. But that is just one example of dealing with that. The pressure on Raimi.
You've got a higher level of accountability, too, when you've got more people giving money. If you're running, especially if it's your money, or like your friend's money, your friend's aunt, something like that, there is generally a lower level of accountability. And when you run into a problem, it's just get it done, make it happen. When you go with higher cost productions, it's more like get it perfect. And it's I'm trying to remember his name's Adam off of Mythbusters has always said, great is the enemy of good, meaning that sometimes you just got to get it done. So more money walks you right into that trap every time. I mean, nobody wants to be accountable to a studio, but
hey, Tiny Captain, good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Dave Cernick says, I read they used a shitload of fake blood in those movies. Yes, they did, especially in 2.
Not just blood, but multicolored liquids of any and every kind.
I used to make that illusion when I worked for a convenience store chain, which I won't name. But back when I worked for them, I'd have to run the trash at the top of my shift, and I'd have to go out and run all the trash cans and just make sure all the trash was empty from the top of my shift. And I'd always equated to like the shit that I got splattered with to be like, so like what Evil Dead juices am I going to be covered in by the end of this was always so horrible. But and that goes to show. But I will want to do a shout out on this one. It was sometimes the accidental awesomeness that took place on this movie was one of the big things was Ted Raimi. So Ted Raimi, younger brother to Sam, plays what's called a Shemp in the movie. And he also did it slightly in the first film as well. He just popped in, and it was when one of the actors is unavailable or unable to do like the makeup and prosthetic work. Like so Ted Raimi would step in and they doll him up with all the makeup and all the prosthetics and everything in order to make him one of the Deadites or like that. He'd be like, because the actress or someone else wasn't available. So they have to bring in Ted Raimi as, to kind of stand in for that. But you wouldn't recognize it because he's so done up like a monster. This same thing, he did the same thing here when Henrietta turns into the monster, when the wife turns into the big monster at the end and she's in the basement. That is actually Ted Raimi in costume, all done up so that he can, so that they can pull that off. So he's in there, and apparently wearing that suit was so atrocious. There's a scene when his sweat is pouring out of that thing because it was apparently so hot. Yeah, it was apparently so hot it nearly killed him and overheated him badly. He, what was it? They had to like dump like liters of his sweat out of the thing when he took it off. And at one point you can see Henrietta when she flies out of the basement, she's like, wah, like this. And then you can see whitish, gross fluid coming out of her ears. That is Ted Raimi's sweat mixed with the talcum powder that was used to get him in that damn getup. And so it was just like, so I can't even imagine. But you'll see that occasionally you'll have an actor step in just to be like the monster or whatever. Just the Shemp is what they call that, to stand in for that. But dang, that was wildly, wildly intense. Yeah. So Little Wolf pulls it up, like Deborah Hill playing Michael in one of the scenes in Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So we call that, it's called a Shemp.
So they mentioned Adam Savage from Mythbusters. If you haven't seen his channel on YouTube, go check it out. He does like prop building a lot on there. He does various things, but a lot of them are props and convention stuff. A good channel.
But definitely Evil Dead 2, one of the coolest fucking entries in the series. Now, I was a huge fan of the Ash vs. Evil Dead franchise. I loved the 3 seasons. It was a shame when it got canceled. What are you going to do? But I thought they ended it well. Ash continues to fight into the future. Now it's going like steampunk and shit, which is great. The Delta is still there, like the far-flung future, which is fantastic. I absolutely adored Sam Raimi and his universe, his Deadite, this Evil Dead universe he's created. Not to mention Evil Dead Rise has been announced, which I have no idea where that's going to go or what it's going to do. So I'm kind of curious. There's very few details out about it, but that'll apparently be the next Evil Dead. Bruce Campbell will not be in it because he's retired from the role of Ash, but who knows what's going to happen. But apparently someone mentioned in the live chat, there's a rumor because Sam Raimi's directing Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness that Ash may have a cameo in that movie. That could be interesting. That could be seriously funny.
Well, there are a ton of video games for it too, and they recently have completely forgot about it until the other day when I was researching this. They brought up they're releasing an asynchronous horror game on there where you can play as Ash or as Deadites, and they do have Evil Ash that you can play as. So. Yeah, that should be an interesting one.
Like Bruce Campbell's duality there, playing the evil version himself, and of course, the Deadite version of Ash, and of course, good Ash was always fantastic. It was just great because he got to go play the bad guy. There's so much writing on him in that movie.
Even just in the mirror scene on Evil Dead 2, when the evil version of him pops out, the way he talks, it's just so damn creepy the way he does it. When normally Bruce Campbell's like, talking like this, so upbeat and so impressive, and then this creepy ass thing crawls out of the mirror.
I love that. I would say one of my favorite moments is when the hand escapes and he's trying to shoot it. He's trying to kill it, and then the hand he basically shooting it with the boomstick, and it catches and it gets its thumb caught in a mouse trap. And it's like, and then Ash is laughing at it like this, and the next it's just like, I love that sequence. But then again, so Little just brought up London Bridge is falling down. He has so many fantastic moments. He really, really does. I think, oh man. So I think him going hardcore into the camera when he was going, like when he's freaking out in the camera.
Oh yeah.
He leans into the camera laughing his ass off is one of my favorite Ash moments.
Well, that whole scene, the first time that I'm sure I saw it somewhere along the line when I was a little bit younger, but didn't appreciate it. But when I was I don't know, I was probably like 19, 18, somewhere in there. We went down to a friend's lake house and we watched it, and we weren't expecting it. When that started, everybody in the room just lost it too. So you've got the TV, everybody's cackling. Everybody, outside of the TV is cackling. It's just one of those amazing moments. I'll never forget that. It makes impression. Because I've actually, I'm blocking him. I've got for a bobblehead, it's big, but a big bobblehead of Ash. And it's great because it's Bruce Campbell's face, like yay big, just bang.
So I think it's time for you think?
Yeah. Klaatu Barada.
Klaatu Barada. All right. Okay.
I did it.
Well, I think it's time for the CTA. Let's go ahead and jump on that.
Yeah, I was trying to say the momentum died. That's not me, man.
This is you.
I ain't Johnny. Oh, the CTA. Oh, yeah, sorry. This one is. I was busy worrying about like who's going to take over if Johnny doesn't get here because
we'll just cover. We'll just we'll just go back and forth. We'll deal with it.
Okay, so CTA. There's no script. This is all ad lib.
Aaron's like still new. We're not going to blame him. We love him. So yeah.
Okay, so the question is, what is your favorite Ash moment? Which you've already covered a lot of them, but you can send it to us in the comments below, email, drop it in the live chat. Alex always needs stuff to enjoy on the toilet, so.
Dave Cernick, you're right. There's a lot of love for classic 50s horror that Raimi has. Yeah, that part in Army of Darkness where he splits into two people was in an old horror show from the 50s. So I think it was a Monster or something along that line. When he's like in half, when he's like, yeah. There's so much goofiness in Army of Darkness.
Well, the
How about a little hot chocolate?
Well, that whole scene's a diversion from the plot. Like the whole, you could cut it out. Yeah, you could cut it all out, and you still have a complete movie. But they just go off the rails on this.
When he steps on the nail, it's like London Bridge is falling down. And he steps on the nail.
I got a thing about stuff stabbing me in the feet, so I don't enjoy that one. It's one of those things where every time, I do exactly that. Anytime you talk about it, it's just like,
and of course the skeleton hands. Oh, brilliant stuff. So definitely let us know in the comments below, or of course in the live chat, or at weekinhorror@gmail.com what your favorite Ash moment is. From any of it, from Army of Darkness, from the Ash vs. Evil Dead series, or from 1 or 2. All right. So I'll pick up the next one because Johnny is not here. So jumping into our second film, as soon as I pull it up, because make sure I have the notes, because this is technically supposed to be Johnny's. But he's not here yet. Released March 16th, 1973. We have the George Romero film, The Crazies. So, directed and written by George A. Romero, starring Lane Carroll, W.G. McMillan, Harold Wayne Jones, Lloyd Haller, Lynn Lowry, and Richard Liberty. The film follows a group, basically follows the military as they try to take over a small town and shut down a small town because of an outbreak of a biological weapon, or a bacteriological weapon called Trixie, which is this basically this bioweapon that was released to that infects an enemy's water supply and drives the populace insane and eventually kills them. And essentially, this film follows the military and trying to respond to that, and trying to contain the insanity before it breaks out into the main population. But the big thing about this one, and it was remade in 2010, I believe, with Timothy Olyphant. But the big thing I will say about this one, the big difference between the two, and the one thing that is centered on, George Romero always has some sort of societal message behind all of his films. With Night of the Living Dead, it was pretty much it was racism, and with Dawn of the Dead, it was consumerism. So there are things that he brings up that's very, very that are what he sees are reflections of our society in the whole zombie epidemic and his dead epidemic. This movie was no different, because the Crazies is very. I've forgotten until I rewatched it just how anti-government or anti our current government, because this came out in 1973, so we're in the shadow of the Vietnam War. And I had forgotten just how anti-government this movie was, because in this one, they are inept. They are overly bureaucratic. They have the one hand doesn't know what the other hand is doing. And they lose complete control of everything, despite this constant reassuring of themselves, everything's going to be okay.
Yeah. And they can't get resources in. The leaders they do bring in are the ones that are competent. Nobody listens to.
Right.
And it's the thing that strikes me too is between newer one, the older one is the older one had kind of a razor sharp plot line feeling to it. It's what you expect. It picks a group, it follows them out. With this one, it bounces around a lot to a lot of different people. There are three main groups. Those who are trying to develop the cure, the military, and the group that's trying to escape, the kind of quote unquote main characters. But it's just all over the place, showing different stuff and demonstrating how stuff's just descending into absolute chaos.
And I thought that worked. If you look at the remake is very, very streamlined. It moves from moment to moment. It abides by the formula. You get a nice, clean story. But that's following the survivors predominantly, reacting to the military.
Yeah.
In this particular one, I got the idea that this was the military reacting to what was going on. It's kind of like we're unprepared for this. We don't know what we're doing. We're going to come in here with an iron hammer and basically do what we know to do, which is pretty much just brute force, which does not work in this particular situation. Things start going out of hand. You've got, everyone's got guns. It's absolutely insane. And then, of course, to cap everything off, that moment when the scientist says, I'm on to the cure. Boom, cure gets destroyed and he gets killed.
Yeah.
So in the ensuing panic as a result of one hand not knowing what the other hand is doing, of the lack of communication, the breakdown in leadership, it's just I not often do you see a movie that is so beyond critical of the government, and I can understand that given the kind of reaction to the Vietnam War and the reaction to the very, very poor societal reaction to the soldiers coming back from that. And of course, you're looking at things like the My Lai incident, which was the My Lai massacre, which was bad. All the reports coming out of Vietnam, that was an awful. I think a black stain on America's record, and no more so than I think for George Romero, who saw that as an opportunity to really showcase just how inept we are when we're trying to deal with shit that we're not prepared for. When we just try to dive in and do stuff.
It started a week before they got there too, because you could try to pinpoint the moment that everything went downhill to when they started trying to round people up and the people were suddenly completely against them. Whereas they could have walked in there, they could have been informed, even if they were telling the gentle lie that they were telling at first about it being a deactivated vaccine that still, infected people or anything, instead of admitting it was a bioweapon. If they would have informed people, but they started rounding them up, and that's when people started attacking back. But it happened a week before when the plane crashed, and nobody did anything. They were screwed the second they touched down, and that really, it's along the same lines of what you're saying, because you had things like the Tuskegee experiments where they were testing syphilis. He had a population, a primarily black population, where they were just letting syphilis go. They would tell them they were cured, but they would let them go to track how it spread, how quickly it spread, what the pattern was and everything.
Just gross.
And just all sorts of things like that, experimenting on soldiers. And Vietnam was where we lost faith in our military, because after World War II, even going through Korea, we still were we still had a heavy belief in our government, but Vietnam destroyed it because the war itself and then everything that started getting revealed in the aftermath. And of course, the Cold War going on too. So there's always that, specter of destruction out there.
Of government overreach and what are they really doing? Black bag programs and, or say, like in dark money, who knows what's funding what and where's going what. And then when you see it from the military perspective, when the Army, and there's so many comments about the Army about it, because you had characters in the survivor group who were in Vietnam and they come back and they're kind of like, they themselves have no faith in their government. They're not here to help us. We need to do this ourselves. There's complete rejection of the government authority in this, which is why we have a survivor group in the first place. And then, of course, even the brass themselves are dropping in. The lead colonel who is there, he's a colonel. And, hey, 1973, your colonel is black. That was, George Romero was always progressive stuff. He'll never admit it. Yeah. He never would admit it. The colonel drops in. And the first, you literally get the sense this guy has no idea what he's dealing with. Nobody's informed of anything because there's always an agenda somewhere that if you were aware of the agenda, you would not support what you were doing. And so everyone is just following orders. And ultimately, it was critical. The whole thing was critical of communication, of the current level of at the time, the level, some would even say now, the level of communication and through the government branches. How, one hand doesn't want the other hand to know everything, and the mentality of just following orders, blindly following orders, which invariably gets a ridiculous amount of service personnel killed who didn't even know why they were there because they were never told, walking into the situation, just, keep your hazmat suit on, keep your mask on, and then this is what you're going to do. Don't know what they're doing. They wind up getting killed. And then, of course, everyone else getting killed. And then ultimately in the end, do we want to, when they talk to David, when they have David in custody, do you want to test him for immunity? It's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And it's like, and then the colonel and David share that knowing glance, at that moment where the colonel's going off to then, be transported out to Louisville, which apparently has people showing symptoms there. Ultimately, the breakdown in chaotic situations. And I know that George Romero was extremely critical of consumerism, of essentially the zombie mentality where everybody is just going, mindlessly going for one particular thing. He addressed that in Dawn of the Dead. He addressed that in Night of the Living Dead was just this kind of sweeping epidemic that was affecting everyone. And no matter who the hero was, it doesn't matter. It's not about your character. It's just about what you look like. And which is why, essentially the ghouls in Night of the Living Dead didn't look like anybody. They looked like everybody else. They just acted differently. But they didn't look like, the zombies that we're so familiar with.
They just looked like they had a hangover.
Right. So, so you have that. And then, of course, I can see what he was trying to say here, but there was a lot of anger about the current situation that came out. I found it to be, unlike the remake, I found it to be a particularly mean film.
And it has a heavy criticism on the population too, because they're equally
right. Because we're equally as bad. Because when we panic, we tend to react, mob mentality, and mob mentality sets in very, very quickly when we're uninformed and we're scared, and so people pretty much do what they do. And you could even say this was rural Pennsylvania at the time. Everybody says it's pretty much the reaction was load up your guns and and go at it. Instead of trying to figure everything out. The only level-headed person out there is David, and everything is just crumbling around him. So
he ditches them because he knows they're that way. Right. He knows how they're going to act, so he gets out of there. And he worked for the government. He hated them. When he came back, he was the big hero in his town, but he doesn't want to kill again. He got celebrated for stuff he didn't want to do.
Right.
So that just put him in the frame of mind he operated in the entire movie. Because his friend was standard infantry, a Green Beret, and he was under the effect of the virus, but he was already aggressive before that. And he hadn't been doing as much killing. So when it came time for it, he was down for it. And
I will say the big thing about this one is unlike, because the remake itself, I love the remake because I love Timothy Oliphant, Rodham Mitchell. I thought it was very, very, very well done. Just a slightly different focus for the movie. Ostensibly the same story, but just a different focus of it. Whereas in this one, This one was actually freakier to me. In the sequel, they'd make a big thing. The infected are obviously infected. You look at them; they're like all jaundiced out, and like their tendons in their neck sticking out, veiny, and looking all. And then obviously, no, look at that, looks like an infected person. Whereas in this one, they're pretty much just insane. They're either insane or they die. It's one of the two. They're either driven irreparably mad, or they die within like 48 hours. It's like, okay. So you have the populace running around in a panic state. You don't know who is infected, and you don't know who is infected and who isn't. It's transmitted via water, so they're not transmitting amongst themselves. So you don't know. So unless someone is directly attacking somebody, you don't know if they're defending someone. You don't know if they're defending themselves or if they're attacking someone legitimately. You don't know what's going on. It's the lack of information there, and how we do as an ill-informed populace. And the big thing about this one is, while Dawn of the Dead had its own set of questions, where I would actually say Dawn of the Dead, Night of the Living Dead, Day of the Dead, these forced us to ask questions about ourselves. There's like, what would I do in the situation? How do I view myself, my relationship to other people, my relationship to, the things that drive me? These were, big societal questions. Whereas this one was really more about existential questions. And it is like, what would you do in this particular situation? Would you, it's a virus. There's a possibility for a cure because it was engineered. Do you kill the people that were infected? The ethical questions and the kind of like the moral quandaries, the existential questions of the military is, how far does there reach to be in order to keep the population safe? What are they willing to do? And, how far will someone go in order to do a particular thing? What, lines being crossed in our society. And then when the colonel, you can see, is consistently faced with these lines that he's got to crazy, like, okay, now I got to deal with this. Now I have to deal with outbreaks in the, amongst my own soldiers. Now I have to deal with what to do with the bodies. Now I have to deal with what to do with people who are infected and don't seem to be violent. And then it just goes on and on and on. And I think this one was definitely one of his more, I would say, existentially questioning films. One of his, and arguably one of his strongest. Yeah, Night of the Living Dead is amazing, but this one was realistic in that respect. An engineered bioweapon gets loose in the population. What are you going to do? And this is what the military does. So,
and the government, difference between, as far as that, the government in the original, government in the remake. In the original, they're inept. Completely inept from top down. The newer one, they're more kind of Illuminati-ish almost. The fact that they can use a computer to track and drop a nuke, and at the end, when they move to a new city, well, start looking at this city. So they are much more effective,
right?
Which kind of reveals how we've entered a more like the government is a force apart from us kind of mentality now, which is it's an unhealthy opinion of it, but it's also somewhat honest opinion.
Gotcha.
Of it.
And look who's finally joined us.
Gary Busey.
Deadly thing in the water. Dark fart.
How's everything? Is everything good?
Well, that's a discussion to be had later.
Okay. So interesting. So I thought this was one of his more poignant film, one of Romero's more poignant films. I wish I got the opportunity to actually talk to him about it. I briefly met him and got to basically be whenever you meet George Romero, you're always like, oh, zombies, let's zombie, that whole idea there. I wish I'd had the wherewithal at the time because I was much younger. I was doing journalism. I wish I talked to him about the Crazies a little bit more because there's a lot of stuff going on in this particular film, and what his message was. His commentary on the military, his commentary on the population, everything goes into this one, and I think it's massive, and it deserves a lot more credit.
Well, and he had a through line about mindlessness,
right?
You have to understand that the Crazies is just Night of the Living Dead with a slightly different monster.
Well, they're viral in that respect. It's basically a bioweapon that's turned the people crazy or dying, but it's not Night of the Living Dead because this one in the original Crazies, the original one, the focus was more on the military and the military's response and how they deal with these situations.
Right, but you're missing the point. The point isn't that it's just a retelling of the Night of the Living Dead specifically, right? What is Night of the Living Dead? What was it? What was it about? Was it about zombies, or was it about the human response to a certain stress or a certain stressor, or the social commentary that was happening? I mean, again,
social commentary on racism.
So that was a huge part of it, right? Social commentary on racism, social
just like in Dawn of the Dead, it was all about consumerism.
Right? Yeah. So when we're talking about the Crazies, we're still talking about a at least localized post-apocalyptic view or stressor that's happening, how we respond to that, the human condition. Basically, what we're talking about in all these types of films, like Night of the Living Dead, whatever, it's going to be the human condition, how it responds to all this, whatever the stressor is, that's going to bring out the true character of a human.
Yeah, it comes down to it, like Walking Dead's tagline: "It's fight the dead and fear the living."
Right.
That ultimately we are the monsters. And I think that's what Romero was always trying to say, is that the monsters don't exist externally. They exist internally, that we are them. And all it takes, just like in The Mist, and, I love what Darabont did with that whole big point. It was like, everything is great. Humans are fantastic and reliable. Throw them in the, while the when you could call 911 and the lights are working and, you got toilet paper, you throw them in the dark and scare the shit out of them, all bets are off.
Yeah, it's that, what is it? The guy was talking about putting somebody in their worst possible circumstances when you really get to meet the true person. And Armageddon's a great way to do that, because all of a sudden there are no societal boundaries or expectations to keep you in. So what are you really like?
Right. Definitely. So I definitely want to ask the audience. We've dived in pretty deep into the original The Crazies, 1973 George Romero classic. But I want to ask, because there was a 2010 remake of The Crazies, and I really enjoyed that one as well, because the focus was different. The focus was on the survivors, not so much the military and them dealing with that. And I love the acting in it. It was just one of the better remakes that have come along in the horror genre. But I want to ask the audience, what is y'all's favorite of the two? Do you prefer the original Crazies, where it's with its kind of like, military critical centric message, or do you prefer the remake with its stronger focus on the survivors and then dealing with this stuff? Let us know which one you prefer, the original or the remake of The Crazies. Let us know in the live chat or down in the comments below, or at weekinhorror@gmail.com. Awesome.
Don't do anything he just said. Anything he just said, don't do it.
Well, at least I showed up on time.
You know what? I mean,
yeah, you got it.
No, I don't want to be mean. I've had a really shitty day.
You've had a rough day.
Sounded like it from what you put earlier.
Pretty tough.
Yeah.
So, I'll tell you what. You're here. Let's take your mind off it, Johnny. You just popped in. Perfect timing. Why don't you carry on our third film tonight?
Oh, well, let me get some notes up. I literally just popped on, and then as soon as I popped on, something else happened. So
I'm glad Johnny's here.
Distract the audience while Johnny gets prepped.
I was going to say, I'm glad Johnny's here, because Leviathan I haven't seen. Like, I started rewatching it early and ran out of time, but it has been years. And I remember it, though, because we talked about the whole underwater genre. My dad loved those. So, I can't remember what's from that, what's from Deep Star 6, what's from anything.
Let's take a look and see what everybody's saying in the live chat here. So Charlie Welch got a love for the remake, Big Leap. Yep, I do love the remake as well. I thought that was amazing. Not to mention Timothy Olyphant just made that movie. It's like, Russell, what are you doing? It's something moving. Everything is fucking moving. I just love his moments when he's about to panic and then he calms himself. He's like, okay. It was like, you're in an extreme situation. He's like, no, I'm not going to lose it in the situation. It'd be like, when he was looking for the keys, he was like, the keys aren't working. He was like, okay, just think. I loved what he brought to that. Just
put on his customer service face.
His customer service face. CPM says, I must admit I haven't seen either. Do yourself a favor. Check this out. If I get an opportunity, I know I've streamed the remake in Discord. I might get the opportunity to stream it again. Sir Cat says the original, the remake lost the point. Excellent point, Sarcasm. That the original, the remake did, essentially what was going on from that perspective wasn't the point of the original. So I get that. So I can see the love for the original.
They try to change the point. They try to take that story and tell a different point. I think it may have just gotten lost in the translation.
Angie says, hands down, the remake. I did. There's a lot of love for that remake. Ivy Gantry says, I haven't gotten to see the remake. I really should, as I live in Iowa, and that is where it was filmed. Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
Yeah, no place to hide out there either. Like,
none. They're
trying to escape in the landscape, and unless somebody has just like freshly shaved the hay and you can hide behind a bale, you're screwed.
Sarah Vela says, that's hard to choose. If I'm being honest and focus poorly on horror factor, then it would be 2010. But I do love classics with a message like the 73 version. Excellent. Sir Little Wolf has love for them both.
Yeah, it said Sir Whittlewolf.
Sir Whittlewolf?
Sir Whittlewolf.
Sir Whittlewolf. All right. Okay, so you ready to go, dude?
I think Road, no, last name you mean, it's not Contagion. That would be Outbreak.
I like the PG version, Contagion with Dustin Hoffman. That would be Outbreak with Dustin Hoffman and Renee Russo. I think Contagion was the Matt Damon one, Gwyneth Paltrow.
Matt Damon.
Matt Damon.
All right, let's continue to kick this pig. So we've already screwed the pooch and given you the name of the film. It's Leviathan, a 1989 film, science fiction horror film. What's that?
I wasn't going to call him. You just call him out for that. I was like, yeah, that's pretty much it. But yeah, go ahead.
Directed by George P. Costamos, or was that Cosmotis? Whatever the fuck his name is. Who gives a shit? Written by, I'm kidding. It's a brilliant director. Written by David Webb Peoples and Jeb Stewart. Stars Peter Weller. Excellent performance in it, by the way. Richard Crenna, Ernie Hudson. That's a Ghostbuster. And Daniel
Winston.
So basically they are in an underwater geological facility. So they are what PhD Tony does. They're geologists who are stalked and killed by a hideous mutant creature.
Yeah.
Designed by award-winning special effects artist Stan Winston. Everybody loves Stan Winston. So you have Tri-Oceanic Corps, who hires a geologist, Stephen Beck, to supervise an undersea mining operation for 3 months. It's always corporate greed.
Corporate greed.
Yep. And as if Eugene were here, that's where he would give his most infamous line, "Shit gets real."
Yes, it does. Just to throw it out there, because the director, George P. Cosmatos, his son, Panos, directed Cosmatos directed Mandy and Beyond the Black Rainbow.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, his son is gone and is doing amazing stuff on his own. But yeah, this was a legendary director, George P. Cosmatos, directed this bad boy. Man, oh man. What? Okay, so I'll be the first to say it. It's like, this is Alien, The Thing.
Right. So, exactly. It's all it is. It's Alien, The Thing underwater. I think I don't know if you want to get into what worked or what didn't work. I think the biggest problem is that The Abyss did what this movie did, only did it better.
Well, The Abyss, not so much a monster movie.
Right. I know. That's what I'm saying. It's not so much a monster movie. It is. It's the unknown, but it's not some people say it's a science fiction horror. I don't think The Abyss is a science fiction horror. I think it's a straight science fiction thriller, maybe.
Science fiction, yeah. Science fiction. Yeah. I was actually science fiction adventure.
Yeah, I could go that route too. There's some scary parts into it, but there's always some scary parts into it, adventure. But when you look at what The Abyss did versus what Leviathan was trying to do, I think The Abyss had a more original story. And of course, Ed Harris and Mary Stuart Elizabeth Master Antonio, who's got to have every goddamn name. He's got to have them all the names. Give me all the names. How many names you want? All of them. And then you have Leviathan. Peter Weller was really, he, like I said, he was good. He was good in this film. I don't think I've ever seen Peter Weller in a bad role. I'm trying to think if I ever saw him just not good. And I don't think I have.
No, the Peter Weller, I think, was one of the big. Obviously, I think he was fantastic in this one. He does what he does. He's a character actor, and he brings what he needs to bring to this. Not to mention the effects of Sam Winston, which makes something like this work. Stan Winston, obviously practical effects. Everything in this movie was pretty much practical effects. And whenever you see a monster, it's something that you can actually interact with. So, and I will say, I swear, because this movie came out in 1989. The movie Parasite, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago, came out, or was it last week, or was it a couple of weeks ago?
Not too long ago.
Thought it was
last week. It was freaking last week. We talked about Parasite.
Because a couple of weeks ago was the 13 movie garbage haul.
I'm not gonna lie. The larval version of the monster in this one was that exact same monster out of the movie Parasite. I think he pretty much reused like the tadpole version of it, the one that was hiding up in the cupboard and then jumped out and got the guy in the stomach.
You know who else?
It
Who else stole the tadpole design?
Who?
The really shitty Stephen King remake, or not remake, but what was that? When they're out in the wilderness and it's super cold and the Dreamcatcher.
Oh, the shit weasels.
Well, I looked it up and it was inspired by lampreys, which are ugly creatures.
Yeah, gross.
But they have that little, fold open mouth with all the teeth along the inside, and it's a lot, like especially in illustrations, a lot of people have used them to draw inspiration from.
I think the big kicker on this one was like we're going into the late 80s, and ever since Jaws, actually, I would say I would actually go back further. Ever since the Poseidon Adventure, when the ocean is scary.
20,000 leagues.
Oh, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Yeah.
20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, the Poseidon Adventure, when the ocean could be a very scary place. The Abyss, says, yes, the ocean is scary. It can be scary and dangerous, but it really is wonderful. It's what James Cameron, I think, brought to it. It's like, yeah, the ocean can be scary, deep, dark trenches, scary thing. You don't know what's there, the unknown. But ultimately, it's a beautiful place. And it's it's full of wonder and excitement, and it's just
benevolent aliens,
aliens that are so helpful and everything. But in this one,
water butterflies.
But ever since I would say you have 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, where it shows like it can be scary, have scary moments, the giant squid, and then of course Poseidon Adventure, sinking boats, and then of course Jaws, whereas would essentially people were afraid to go in the water, and it starts making the ocean out to be a scary place. And then, of course, this movie came out around the same time as Deep Star 6, which is essentially another underwater monster movie. And this one, and same thing you could say with Sphere. Kind of, you have the trend of making underwater movies that are scary. At the time the technology was beginning to increase, they could start churning out underwater movies because they became more accessible to everybody. So now it's kind of like, oh, we can continue doing this. We don't have to have these big specialized budgets in order to do this. Now the technology has come along far enough, going all the way back, from Creature from the Black Lagoon, when it was very difficult to shoot underwater, but they managed to pull it off and made amazing sequences of Gilman underwater. But in this one, now we can do it. So I think let's do a monster movie underwater, and obviously we're competing with Deep Star 6, which I think came out a little after this one. I think this one came out first, if I remember. Correct me if I'm wrong in that. If this one came out before, because this one came out early in the year. I think Deep Star 6 came out in the winter dump season.
So Deep Star 6 was December.
So it came out in the winter dump season. So this one comes out first. And ostensibly, you're trying to make a monster movie underwater. What works? And the big work is that everybody's trapped. You can't go outside.
No, I'm sorry. Deep Star 6 came out first. It was released in January.
January of this year. Okay, so January came out first. Leviathan came out second. And it's essentially the same thing. Like I said, Alien, the Thing. In the Alien, they're trapped on the ship. You can't get away because outside is space. You will die. And then the monster's on the inside of you. Same thing with the Thing. You can't go out into the snow because you'll freeze to death. So you got to be in here. So you got to stay in here and battle the monster. Take the chance with the monster. The same thing goes with Leviathan. Only kind of combine the two. It's got the claustrophobic effects of being down on that underwater rig. Nowhere to go because the pressure outside will kill you. And then, of course, this monster, which can, essentially absorbs people into itself to make this horrific amalgamation of your friends as it gets bigger and bigger, just like the Thing did, where it was, you see the guy's face like sticking out of it going, oh, like he's still alive or something. Oh, that was horrible. But especially, that scene when what's happening under the blanket when the dude's in he was in the infirmary, and you know what's going on there, but you don't want to see it. But that's what I dug it. The practical effects made it work. Stan Winston's effects made it work, especially the big reveal of the giant monster at the end. Because before then, when it comes up out of the ocean, which I didn't expect, and poor Ernie Hudson doesn't make it out alive, which really
Of course not.
bummed me
He's a
out.
black dude in a horror film. I mean, it's
He
just like,
made it to the final moment. It's
I
like,
know. It's like, teasing you. Nope.
so, but I liked Leviathan. I liked Leviathan more than I liked Deep Star 6. I think Leviathan worked on more levels and better on some levels. In some areas, it kind of doesn't. But I think the acting was better. I think the writing was better. And I think Peter Weller, who is an amazing character actor, led himself to it. It's kind of like the perfect everyman to be in an extreme situation. And who else has a jump shot like that at the end? You know, just like in the ocean jump shot. You know, when he just like 2 points that fucker right in his mouth. I thought it wasn't just like an overhead like Dr. J. It was just like, ha! I thought that was great.
I would have liked the hook shot a little better, though, I gotta be honest.
If he just been like, like a grenade.
Yeah.
Instead of being like say, motherfucker, and then ha, and then just like 2 pointed right into his mouth. But that has panache. You know, like just that's like
so does the hook shot, right? You got to remember the hook shot was iconic. Nobody
hook
ever
shot was
done it.
iconic. This is true.
Everybody was doing the regular fucking. I can shoot a basket, and they were like, Dr. J said, you can't do it this way though. Ha ha, motherfucker. So I would have preferred that one. That's all I'm saying.
But I dig it. You know, it works in a number of ways, and I think this one comes down to the actors, and of course the monster. It comes down to the actors and the monster. I think they did really, really well. I think it was a good-looking monster. Stan Winston, you know, is renowned for it, and it got a chance to. I think he got a chance to use the thing that he made for Parasite to actually use it in a more effective fashion, because that thing was gross and scary. Whereas in Parasite, it was kind of like, meh. It's like, we'll put it in something a little bit better. And that thing was horrible. Oh God, it was gross. The monster
I know what
always
to get JL as a pet.
the monster, this one always got me, man. It was so disgusting, and the way it just absorbed people, and then the people were like still alive, and there was like, help me. I was like, oh, that's so fucked up.
But that's how it would go,
right?
I don't know why, but
unlike Deep Star 6, where it's just like this big crustacean thing. It's like, that was more like a 50s monster movie. Just set underwater.
That's true.
Well, that's one thing too about underwater. All of the thing that all underwater films exploit is we don't know anything about it. We know more about space than we do about the bottom of the ocean, and we're learning more every day. But still, space exploration is still way ahead of it. So it's scary to us, and then it has much more room for writing where somebody's can't be like, that's not how it is down there.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about talk about the ocean is a scary place. No truer words have ever been spoken.
This is true,
because we don't even know what is it, a third of the actual life forms that are down there. I forget who it was they were talking about. They were doing some underwater expedition, and they caught on their, I think it was on their radar, something that was so big that it took up the entire screen of their radar. And then it just went away. They don't know if it was an anomaly or if it was a fucking underwater monster.
Well, they've got that one too. It's a camera on the bottom of I think it was on the bottom of an oil rig, but they're circling around, and it is this crazy looking squid that's got an almost polygonal head, almost shaped like a D20 or something for Dungeons & Dragons, and these long thin arms hanging off, and it looks just completely alien. And it's like, I'm not going there. We're good up here.
There's a lot of freaky shit in there. I was going over it, and the reason that this thing works better than I would say Deep Star 6, it was the pedigree that was behind it, because you've got George P. Cosmatos, who previously directed the Rambo films, Rambo First Blood Part 2, and Cobra. So you've got a director who's action oriented. He knows how to frame an action shot. He knows how to capture it. You've got award-winning DP, which was Alex Thompson, and so he's been Oscar nominated. So you got people behind the camera know what the hell they're doing. Obviously, Stan Winston, he's 4-time Oscar winner. Stan Winston, churning out the effects, and the thing was written by David Webb Peoples, who wrote David Webb Peoples and Jeb Stewart. Who David Webb Peoples wrote Blade Runner, and Jeb Stewart wrote Die Hard.
Mm-hmm.
So the pedigree behind this thing was strong. I think that's why this one works so much better than anything else, than the other ones that came out around it, just because the amount of talent and dedication behind it. It's like, hey, we've got this thing. Let's go full bore and let's find the people who know how to do this shit correctly, so it doesn't just come off like another, underwater monster movie that's going to come out like looking goofy and whatever. So, hey, that's about it. You find the people with the skill in order to make your vision happen. And then you can turn even what would have been just another cheesy underwater monster movie, turn it into something solid. So it has it can be at least become a cult film and become something solid.
Yeah. And that's all we have to say about that.
That's all I have to say about that.
So yeah, I mean, we've talked about the performances of the cast, and I think that's really where the saving grace is of this film. Not again, Stan Winston's great effects, but the story isn't the best, but the way it's told via the characters, I think, is what really makes this more than just a watchable film.
Mm-hmm.
This is a segue to start a conversation.
I'm agreeing with you, but this I figured, because you see the time, so I figured it would be CTA time.
Fine. Forget the conversation we're going to have. Instead, let me ask the audience.
Johnny's a little off today.
Fuck the conversation. Let me ask you guys, what is your favorite Stan Winston monster? And before everybody runs to Pumpkinhead, I want you to consider all the monsters that he's made. Okay, that's all I'm saying.
So many monsters.
Yeah.
Let us know down in the
half the
comment
list.
section. Jesus Christ. I quit.
Where?
Anyway, let us know in the comment section, in the side chat, or at weekinhorror@gmail.com, because Alex needs shitting material to read. Or
he does. So I know, you said Pumpkinhead, and I'm kind of like, hell fucking yeah. Because Pumpkinhead is amazing. But I still got to go down to it. And I think it's going to be Pumpkinhead will be a close second. I got to go with the Predator. And that's because
the
Predator.
Terminator.
Oh, well, the Predator, I go with the Predator because of the story behind it. How it was a Predator with input from James Cameron.
That's true.
So, and I think that's just like badass, because even Stan Winston said, I gotta make this fucking monster. It's like, we don't look like this. And then Cameron just kind of like, you just imagine Cameron leaning over and going, that thing should have mandibles.
Hey, you know what would be kind of cool is if he could eat without moving his in mouth. He could eat with his out mouth. He doesn't have an out mouth. Exactly.
Yeah. So I thought that was, I love that one. And then at number 2 is going to be Pumpkinhead. And then I'll throw the Terminator in there as well, as far as the top 5. It's just a cool fucking looking cyborg, or I would say android, really. Was it android?
Not even cyborg.
It's an endoskeleton in the end, but he's cyborg overall.
Yeah.
Because it's supposed to be organic flesh.
Yeah, living tissue over metal endoskeleton. So, but the Terminator is badass, especially the big reveal when all of his shit gets blown off. And it's like, I'm a fucking killer robot. That shit was great. But the Predator was badass as far as suits go. Imagining Kevin Peter Hall hauling that bad boy around, and then when you get the close-ups on his face, that's his
Fun fact: the Predator is the one who saved them in the helicopter at the end of the movie. I'm serious. That's Kevin Peter Hall.
That's Kevin Peter Hall, and he was flying the helicopter. Yeah,
flying helicopter. Yeah.
But I love that that you could, when you did the close up on its face, and unlike in Predator 2, when they did the close up on his face, those weren't real eyes. So because there's a scene when Danny Glover is got the Predator there, and they do a close up on the Predator's face. You see its eyes; those were animatronic eyes. Whereas in the first one, when he's going toe to toe with when Arnold Schwarzenegger hits him in the face, and he's like, that was nothing, then he punches him. There's a close up of his face, and you can see those eyes. Those are Kevin Peter Hall's. So I love how it blended it and made it more realistic. That's what that's why I love the Predator so much. It was the perfect monster design as far as just badass aliens go. I dig it.
Somebody said the Queen Alien was the Queen Alien designed by Stan Winston. I thought that was I thought that was somebody else. Dan O'Bannon, wasn't it?
That was I think that may have been Dan O'Bannon who came up with the Queen design.
I think he did. I think it was Dan O'Bannon with influence from H.R. Giger, of course.
Yeah, because Giger developed the initial concept that was utilized by Ridley Scott and his people put together the alien based off his designs, and then I think O'Bannon pulled together the to say, well, what would be a big one? What would be this big, Mama Queen looking thing? So little, okay. So yeah, he wrote the screenplay.
I had to look up the original Predator costume. The original Predator costume, if you've ever seen it, looks like a praying mantis on crack. It is. And it was Jean-Claude Van Damme, too, bounding through the woods.
Oh, okay. So Dan O'Bannon wrote the script, which had the alien queen in it. And then it was James Cameron and Stan Winston collaborated to create the Xenomorph Queen. So, yeah. So that was the creation between the two. He's done so much amazing stuff.
Jesus. Yeah, I'm looking at his credits. It's insane.
Brendan Riley says Jean-Claude Van Damme was originally supposed to play the Predator, but he kept breaking the suit by kicking it. He also had a major problem because you couldn't see him because he was completely covered. You couldn't see his face. So, and he didn't like that fact. Not to mention the suit was a bitch. It sucked and it was hot and it was gross. And he's got an ego, so he didn't want to be the monster because it was
all that just went straight to he's got an ego.
Right, and so it was originally supposed to be basically speed versus strength, which was like he's all strong, but the monster's supposed to be like fast and nimble and invisible and shit.
Yeah.
So when they redesigned, when Van Damme wasn't working out and that suit wasn't working out, they went back to the drawing board, and that's when they designed the new Predator suit. They said, "Well, it's Arnold Schwarzenegger. Let's just make an alien that's bigger and stronger than him."
Which is far more frightening.
Yes,
bigger and stronger
than Schwarzenegger in his prime.
Six-time Mr. Olympia, yeah.
So if your alien comes in and grabs Schwarzenegger by the throat, just hauls him off and just picks him up like that, it's like you got problem.
When he holds him like a child,
it's just like it's like yeah, whatever. So it's stuff right there is that's why I love the Predator. I think it was absolutely sick as far as design goes. All right, well, we got one more.
All right.
We're coming down to it, so you might want to jump. So let's jump on it, Aaron. I know I saved this one for you, bud.
Yeah, this one. I love this one. Got to be my top 10. So next one is Ravenous. It was released March 19th, 1999. Directed by Antonia Bird, which there's a little more to that. Written by Ted Griffin, starring Guy Pearce, Robert Carlyle. I could go through the list, but a crap ton of other famous actors and actresses.
Most importantly, David Arquette.
Oh God.
David Arquette, Neil McDonough, John Spencer, Jeffrey Jones, Jeremy Davies. A fantastic ensemble cast.
Yeah, it's a long list. And they all do a great job too on this. Which it's trouble production. But basically, the plot line, it's 1840s California. Everybody is heading west. Guy Pearce, the main character, Boyd, basically commits an act of cowardice in the Mexican-American War, gets shipped out to this crap fort in the middle of winter, and a guy shows up, and it turns out he's experienced something very similar to the Donner Party, where his party got lost, and they all ended up eating each other, and it was specifically led by the leader of the party. He lures them to the cave, attacks them, kills them, except for Guy Pearce's character, Boyd, who survives, and then it turns out that's actually their new colonel, the same guy, and he ends up in a struggle with him because he has previously tasted blood when he was in the Mexican-American War, and it made him stronger, faster, braver. He ate human flesh to survive during the second encounter, and the remainder of it is him trying to kind of decide if he's going to stay the coward and go ahead and join this little tiny group of cannibals that's forming, or if he's going to do the brave thing and put his life at risk to stop this.
The big kicker on this one, and I think comes out, and I think one of the things that makes Ravenous so fantastic is the writing here. obviously delivered by, top-notch talents, Guy Pearce, Robert Carlyle. Everyone plays an amazing role here and conveys their characters perfectly. And while it is a bit of a horror comedy, there are comedic elements to it, moments that will make you laugh, especially Robert Carlyle, who is just, who's so meta aware of what he is, in that respect. Like, he's got this grand insight into the world because of what he's done, because, the fact, the whole Wendigo concept. The big thing on this one, what I loved, was the illusion and the justification for what he's doing. Is that Robert Carlyle's character, Calhoun, or Colonel Ives, is what he's doing. So Colonel Ives is, his whole identity is wrapped up in his whole justification for this is similar to the U.S. and its expansion through the West. It manifests destiny. And that he looks at it very much as the same way. It's like, this is what we do. This is what humans do. This is what we're meant to do. And if this didn't exist, it wouldn't be here for us to use it and use it to achieve and attain all we want. And it's, the U.S. is doing it. The government's doing it now, spreading its arms open wide and consuming everything that it can in the name of westward expansion, manifesting its own destiny, which is ostensibly what Ives is doing. He was dying because it's a story. He's dying of tuberculosis, black thoughts, suicidal ideation, migraine headaches, and eventually takes hold of his own and manifests his own destiny by engaging with this legend, this Wendigo legend, which turns his life around. And that's what it is taking hold of your destiny, not being a victim of circumstance, which is how he justifies this. Whereas Boyd sees it as the ultimate betrayal of what makes us human. So and I love that. It's juxtaposed, of course, cannibalism, because we can, power, it would give us, and then what we take from others. And then, of course, Boyd with the final line of our humanity is you never do that. The same thing can be said towards Western expansion and manifest destiny, which is probably one of the biggest sticking points in American history, I think. One of the biggest sticking points in American history is what we did in an effort to make this country what it is.
Yeah. And you feel bad. You feel a little bit bad for him especially because Robert Carlyle makes him, he's so intelligent and eloquent, but he's an absolute monster.
Absolutely. It's just like breakfast, lunch, reinforcements.
And eat to live, don't live to
don't
eat.
Live to eat.
Yeah.
You see what I did there?
But he, you almost can understand, which you're going to question, he's got to keep eating to stay with this. So are all these lives worth his one? And statistically, no. Morally, no. But nobody wants to die. So you almost understand why he did it in the first place. But then he takes other people and he puts them in that same position, eat or die. So you do kind of feel for him, and it was almost that way with the U.S. We thought we had to expand to survive as one large thing, and we now know we didn't. That's nothing. That's not an excuse for anything we did, but it just kind of gives you an idea of the mindset back then. But you do kind of feel bad, and like trying to think of how to say this. Is that you got this main character who is supposed to be this hero, and he is not.
No,
everything about the film is just, it's either slightly off or completely opposite of what it should be. Because most of the people there have been kicked out because they're crazy.
Right.
And then piss people off. So
failures in some way, that they are rejects. Yeah.
Yeah, and they get along somehow as a family, even though they have habits to drive each other crazy. And the only other person here that is seemingly sane is his original colonel. And it turns out, and they never say it directly, but he got sent out there for something bad too, because he's very forgiving of Boyd's cowardice. And then when it comes time, he eats to live too.
Very much, they make a point of that Colonel Hart is very accepting of the human condition. He understands it, and also the fact that he's well read in searching for the truth in things, and that cowardice is, I mean, there's a merit to it as much as there is for heroism, and that blindly turning your eye to an eye to it, or saying that a particular aspect of the human condition is valorous as opposed to another one. Both of them serve a purpose. One is great accomplishment. One is an act of survival. And he understands the truth of them both, that if there were not acts of cowardice, if everyone rushed off to be a hero, like this, we would not be here. And then in his readings of Aristotle, of Plato, of trying to, especially the guy who I amuse myself. My hobby is reading, the classics in the original languages. That's what he does. The man is an intellectual and he understands, which is why, no, I'm not going to judge you for what you did. It was an extraordinary situation. I wasn't there myself, but I understand why it could happen.
Yeah, and it alludes heavily to his past because this is a leader that should be somewhere else.
Right.
Not babysitting a fort in the middle of winter, because that's the reason why it's so empty is it's winter. Nobody's traveling through. They're going to get snowed in. I mean, he should be somewhere handling a major detail, and he's not. So he's done something. He's made somebody mad. He screwed up somewhere and ended up out there. But the whole movie feels that way. You're in a god-awful, miserable place. It's filthy. It's lonely, and the music matches perfectly. If you ever get a chance to listen to the score, do it. But that's why it comes in.
The minimalist score in this is just brilliant.
Yeah, and they don't try to make it perfect. It's older instruments played the way they probably would have sounded before we improved them through technology.
Right.
And it's laid together till it has a very traditional sound, but it also has a very creepy tempo. And I still have that CD for that score.
Dun, 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 dun. I love the simplicity of and what it conveys, and it juxtaposes against very, very deep, very complex questions, not only about ourselves, but our society and in our country as well. And, where our humanity falls in lines. But ultimately, it actually is simple. You know where you fall. And that's just like what side it is when it comes down to certain decisions. It is black and white. It is very simple. It is this or it is not that. Very, very simplistic. And I love that. There was some very, very smart decisions. And given what we got, it's really, really interesting when you know that the production itself was deeply troubled, because Antonia Bird was not the original director on this. So the original director, if I remember, I don't want to get his name wrong, was
I think I can say it.
Manchevsky?
Yeah, it says Milcho Manchevsky.
Milcho Manchevsky spent 3 weeks on this bad boy and then quit. So apparently it was as a result of studio interference that he was trying. At one point, he was trying to get additional storyboards approved, and because it was like, we need a little bit more time because we got this excellent thing we want to shoot. We got additional storyboards, and it was just like fighting constantly back and forth with the studio. He eventually got like an additional week to shoot. It was problematic. Eventually, he just bailed and brought in Antonia Bird. And this is one of the only times I've heard a director being replaced, because the same thing kind of happened with The Island of Dr. Moreau with Frankenheimer.
Yeah.
Frankenheimer came in to take over for Richard Stanley. And because Richard Stanley lost control of that production, Frankenheimer came in there to put the hammer down. Same thing. Antonia Bird gets brought in to take over production on this bad boy. And her reaction was as in when they get done with it and the movie's out and it's all done, she's like, do not blame Marco for anything or Milcho for anything that you heard. It is all true. I don't blame him for leaving this production. I don't blame him for what was going on, because she dealt with it as well coming on the back end. And it was just absolutely nuts. Studio interference, basically hitting a wall with every decision you need to make as a director.
Yeah, well, he was getting daily notes back with the rushes every day. They were living so far up his ass that every time they came back, there was recommendations. They spent the entire first day because, he bought for that 2 weeks, but then spent the entire first day negotiating contract. And they babysat him, and nobody, it doesn't matter what business you're in, that is horrible to have them living on top of you. So, I don't blame him for ditching out. And evidently there was a director in between. I don't have the notes on it, but there's a director in between that the cast just wasn't going to accept. So he kind of came and went. And like you said, Robert Carlyle recommended her, and they picked her up, and she did a good job, but I don't know how she stood it.
Rajat Gosnell.
Yeah.
So Ziskin was producing, and Ziskin was giving him notes on the rushes every single day, complaining about the amount of dirt on the costumes, the number of close-ups, and basically micromanaging him at every turn. And then after 3 weeks of shooting, Ziskin arrives on set with Raja Gosnell, with director Raja Gosnell in tow, to fire him, to basically dismiss Manchevsky and plays Gosnell in as a replacement. And then Manchevsky left the production, and the cast just rejected Gosnell. Robert, I think it was Robert Carlyle is who recommended Antonia Bird. And because Robert Carlyle had frequently collaborated with Antonia. And then she came in and then just started like kicking ass and got it done. But she criticized the circumstances under which the filming took place. They just, to quote her, she described the allocated studio space as horrible and the scheduling of the shoot manipulative. She went on to say that her predecessor, Manchevsky, should not be blamed for the problematic production. And apparently the final theatrical cut had elements introduced into the film without her approval, as she expressed disdain over the voiceover narration and was interested in recutting the film for the European market. And it's just, this is what happens. Occasionally you get that one producer who's like, they've got to watch every single goddamn penny. And this is when it's not just a matter of micromanaging money. It's about the producer has a vision and the director has a vision. And because the producer has their hands in the money pit and has their hands in the money jar and is like determining things like that, they think they have like a big say. They can have suggestive power. Maybe we could try this. Maybe we could do that. Maybe I'd like to see a little bit of this. But when it comes to the overall creative vision, that is the director's.
Yeah. Designed by committee movies are horrible. Right.
And that's ultimately, we could have killed this movie, but I think luckily because Antonia Bird and because Robert Carlyle trusted her, and I think pretty sure this small little cast of actors really trusted each other. And so that trust in Robert Carlyle translated to the new director, and they were able to knock out a picture despite the studio trying at every turn to make it as hard as physically possible.
Yeah, and they obviously didn't get what was the overall feel of the movie, because if they're complaining about dirt on the uniforms, that was part of it. It's one of those where it is a dirty movie, just like, we talked about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and they play off that, because later, after Ives and previous Colonel, they come out and they are basically spit shine, perfect, clean, nice uniforms, hair combed, face clean, and it signals that, we've eaten, now we're amazing. So they weren't getting it. I mean, they were trying to do something they had no experience or training for, which is, backseat direct.
Overall, a good cannibal horror film.
Yep.
Up there. Definitely up there.
Okay, so the CTA, you can put it in the comments, email, and side chat if you're here right now, is what is your favorite cannibal horror? Oh man, that's a wide one.
That's a wide one.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I think I'm gonna have to, as far as cannibals go, I'm thinking I'm gonna have to go like old school. I'm gonna have to go Cannibal Holocaust. It's just my favorite. It's just like my favorite because that's the one that said like, here you go, we're diving in. We're going. Some would say Cannibal Ferox, but I'm gonna go with Cannibal Holocaust. I dug that one.
My only thing about Cannibal Holocaust is I'm like, I don't care if you eat the people. Again, they made stupid decisions, but leave the animals alone.
This is true.
That turtle was just standing there.
Yeah. All right. So I see Johnny has had to step away. Apparently he's got something going in the background. So I'll tell you what, because it's about that time. It's trivia time, baby. I can't do it like Alex can do it. He does it so much better. But I think it's trivia time. And as I told everybody, the trivia prize tonight is a box set, the Evil Dead Groovy Collection box set, which we got one of those to give away. And I'm excited about this one. So I'm wondering how fast we're gonna get this. Let me pull up the live chat and make sure. Oh, I gotta turn the volume down because I'm hearing myself.
I'm not the only one that screwed that up.
I know, right? So here we go. I got the live chat up, and I'm watching everybody's responses. It is time. Someone's got, Ivy Gentry's going to go with Fine Young Cannibals. Sarah Vella's going to go with The Hills Have Eyes. Excellent. Tiny Captain says Hannibal or Silence of the Lambs. So Little Wolf's a Mountain of the Cannibal God. Sarcasm. I love truly dark humor. Ravenous is my favorite. Very cool. There's a lot of good ones out there. A lot of love for The Hills Have Eyes. Absolutely. All right. So go ahead, Aaron. Give him the trivia question tonight.
Okay, everybody ready?
Ready.
Trivia question for the night is, what was the name of the book on top of the stack that Ash uses to trap his evil hand? So, what was the name of the book on top of the stack that Ash uses to trap his evil hand?
I want to see how fast this goes in. Come on. First person to get the answer correct in the live chat wins the Evil Dead Groovy Collection box set.
Yeah, this is one of those that somebody would have just picked up along the way. Nothing buried too deep. Oh, looks like we got
last name. Oh wait, no, not Roto. Nope, that's wrong. That was incorrect. Sorry, my bad. It was And the George said. Sorry about that. Oh, I just pulled a Moonlight. I just pulled a fucking Moonlight. What I did, I call it the wrong individual. And the George said, I think. Let me double check.
Yeah, check, because on the live chat, I'm showing Rodent first on mine.
He said a call to arms.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I see it now. Okay.
I messed that up. Yeah, Ronozo said, fuck, farewell. Oh, man. I'm so sorry, wrote it no last name. But And the George said did nail it. A Farewell to Arms was the name of the book, the book on the top of the stack that Ash used to trap his evil hand. So congratulations, Jord.
No, Jord didn't get it right.
Yes, he did.
No, he didn't.
He's nitpicking the first fucking word again.
That's incorrect.
Congratulations, And the George said. I'm so sorry I wrote it no last name. I misread it myself. I have the answers. It's right here in the script, and I was like, "Oh, wrote no last name," and I realized I misread it. It's my bad. So I didn't mean to call you, huh?
Oh, sorry.
I'll tell you what. Should I send wrote no last name a T-shirt to make up for my goof?
You should send him a mug to make up for your goof.
Should I send him a Week in Horror mug?
Yep.
Wrote it no last name. Get me your shipping details, and I will send you an official Week in Horror mug to make up for that. So I do apologize. That's my bad. I shouldn't have called it out, but you do deserve something for being the first one to drop an answer that was so close to the actual one. And the George said, I have your shipping details. We will get that box set shipped out to you ASAP. Thank you so much, dude. Congratulations once again.
Wait, what did we give away?
The trivia prize is a Evil Dead Groovy box set.
Lucky bastards.
What I was saying goes, a couple people said Necronomicon. No, that's the book they cast a spell from, not just a lay around book.
So
it's kind of funny. It's funny. It's called A Farewell to Arms. This is about to cut off his hand.
I know. We're doing another Dusk Till Dawn here.
So congratulations, Jordan. I will get that shipped out to you ASAP. So that is going to bring another episode of Week in Horror to a close. Thank you all so much for listening, and we truly hope that you enjoyed the show. Join us next week when we look back at the berserk splatter insanity of Herschel Gordon Lewis's 2000 Maniacs, the Australian slasher Blood Moon, Death by Gaming and Stay Alive, and the After Dark original Scream of the Banshee with Lance Henriksen. We'd like to send a special shout out to all of our amazing patrons who continue to help us make Week in Horror the incredible success it has become. Thank you all so very much. You see your names down there on the banner below. Be sure to stop by Joshua Olsen's store, www.badsamurai.store. He does all of our amazing artwork for the show, and his designs are incredible. Not to mention, we have limited edition shirt number 5 coming up soon. We are finalizing the artwork on that. You will see it, and we will discontinue number 4 and bring 5 straight to the store. For more horror fun, be sure to follow us on the socials where you will get the daily splatter right to your feeds, and at Digital Darkness, our new YouTube gaming channel hosted by Alien X Gaming. Thank you so much, bud. Also, another one of our amazing patrons. Please comment, like, subscribe, and smash that bell as if you are someone's #1 fan for all the latest updates from the show. Those interactions really help us to appease the insatiable hunger of our dark god algorithm. And lastly, if you love what we do here and you would like to and are able to support our production, you can through our Patreon. We have tiers as low as $1 a month. That is cheaper than a Walmart bin UA Bowl film. Higher tiers get early and special After Dark access, bonus content, monthly horror movies, and can even join us here on the show as special judges for our bloodbath debates. But if Patreon is not your modus operandi, you can always support us directly through our PayPal. Links to all of this, including our Discord community, where you can find film recommendations, trailers, trivia games, horror watch parties, and even interact directly with us, are in the description below. As always, sharing the show with the fans in your local horror community is the absolute best way to help us further our goals of global horror domination. Thank you all for being the greatest audience a podcast could have. I am JL.
I'm Aaron.
And I'm some fart sniffer.
We will see you all. God damn you. We'll see you all next week. And as always, stay scared.
Bye-bye.